welcome to the Silurian. We've been here before. It is actually a blessing in disguise that I've already mentioned a bunch of Silurian fauna, because now I get to talk about why the Silurian era itself is one of the most important eras in the history of life and one of my personal favorites. The Silurian era spanned from 444 million years ago to about 420 million years ago, and despite the roller coaster of a mass extinction the world had just experienced, the climate of the Silurian was surprisingly stable. This vital breathing room is exactly what life needed to kick it up a gear, and that's exactly what it did, because the Silurian is an era of firsts, and we all remember our first. In the ocean, we were seeing the evolution of the first fish with jaws, like Cephalaspis. Because what is so crazy to think about is that up until this point, no creatures had jaws. Everything was filter feeding and grabbing stuff and shoving it in your mouth hole. The evolution of the jaw is a landmark in the history of evolution, because everything with a jaw, including us, evolved from these fish, which, if you think about it, defined how we eat, how we communicate, how we live our lives. But as always, the most important first of the Silurian did not come from animals, but from plants, the true pioneers of life. Because the Silurian saw the evolution of the first ever vascular plants, and this would be the landmark moment that would define life going forward forever. I am simplifying this dramatically, but a vascular plant is essentially a plant that can absorb and retain water within its stem, often aided by a root system. Ancestors of vascular plants include ferns, flowering plants, and most importantly, trees, also known as most plants that exist today. This was so revolutionary because now vascular plants no longer needed to rely on being near bodies of water like the ocean, because they could retain their own. And since plants will always compete for space and light, the vascular plants could move further inland, meaning that photosynthesis was now happening in many more places. And increased photosynthesis means increased oxygen in the atmosphere, which means life on land for the first time was actually starting to look habitable. And we have evidence of this because the first permanent land dwellers were small arthropods like centipedes and spiders and scorpions. Not the giant sea scorpions, they stayed where they were. Honestly, we humans say we're leading the charge, but we will only ever go where the plants go. The Silurian is a success story about life coming back from the brink, and now that life on land was an actual concept for the first time, that brings us to the Devonian, where life truly starts to take over the world.